everybody! How are you guys all doing? Hang on, my volume might be a bit loud, a bit soft. How's that volume? Volume a bit better? Hello, everybody. I apologize for starting late. I couldn't find the clock app that I normally use. I'm looking all over my desktop for the clock app, and I couldn't find it. And I was setting up something new as well, which I wanted to try out. And that's what we call the promo cam, or the highlights cam. So this week we were talking about the new Kickstarter dice that had dropped, the endless dice that came out. And I thought, well, I've got the space now that I've moved into the new YouTube space. And, you know, it's time for us to start utilizing that. So I set up this little shot here. And it's like, there we go. There's the dice. Live, you can see my awful fingers as we come in for the dice. But, you know, people were saying, oh, you can't see the numbers very clearly. And I thought, well, a better way to do it is to actually kind of show you. Those numbers do pop out, I would have to say, pretty damn... Oh, there goes the display. Pretty damn well, I must admit, on pretty much all of them. You've got to get them. You've got to at the right angle, type of thing. But anyway, if you haven't backed these dice yet, if you haven't found out about these dice, I suggest you keep watching, because we'll talk about them a bit more. I must admit, the dark ones, now that I look at it, it's like, well, yeah, the dark one, the detailing is a little bit lost. These Avernus, well, I call them the Avernus dice. That's not what they're called, but these very dark ones, they feel like they're made out of charcoal, as a matter of fact. But when they say that the dice are a different size, if I put one of our tried, true, and tested standard plastic dice, you'll see that there's quite a... Oh, come here, you swine. There's quite a big size difference between these dice and the plastic. Well, just go away then. Fine, go away. Still one of my all-time favorite die of all time. It looks like it's ancient. Meanwhile, I kind of got it the other day. Anyway. So there you are. If you haven't checked out this Kickstarter yet, if you are a dice collector, they are solid dice. They really are solid, and I think they're very pretty. We'll talk more about them a little bit later on, if you guys want to. So anyway, so I just thought, well, I can't stack dice to save my life, can I? Right, there we are. So yeah, that's the promo cam, if you like. We can put cards there. We can put whatever we like there. I mean, it's 6 of 1, and it's just demoing stuff so you guys can get a better look and feel and taste for things, I guess. I hope you guys have had a relaxing Saturday, or if your Saturday is just beginning for you, I hope that it is going to be a relaxing one. I have had an incredibly busy one today. Lots of things going on, doing lots of things. We've started doing tutorial videos for Dungeon Fog, which is quite exciting. It doesn't have anything to do with the channel. I'm really just talking about... I'm doing the training videos for Dungeon Fog. So those are going to be official Dungeon Fog tutorial videos, which they haven't done yet. And so that's what I have been doing. It does take quite a long time when you're sort of explaining everything. If you want to know, this is a real background, by the way. It's a real background, and it's got artifacts and stuff from all over Japan, and, well, from all over the world, as a matter of fact. One day I can do a bit of a walkthrough of it. Yes, how did you find a mini T-Rex to kill and display? Look, the killing part was really tricky because he was so tiny, it was difficult. But once I sat on him, it was game over. He just could not survive. He just could not survive. So that T-Rex skeleton, I have to say, I believe, and I stand to be corrected, I believe that came either... No, it didn't come from Wish. It came from Amazon Japan. Yeah, the katana's blade should face towards heaven. Yeah, well, yes, it should. On the other hand, if a samurai ever did get hold of that sword, I would be killed immediately, because the sword, it's a display sword from Japan. Because when I was leaving Japan, I was like, hang on a moment, I need to have some kind of major memento from Japan. And so they have these display swords. Now, Japan is quite against having real weaponry unless it's particularly ancient. So what they do is they make the blade. It's a zinc aluminum for the Americans, or zinc aluminium compound. So basically it looks shiny. The edge of the blade is particularly blunt, and if you do try and hit someone or something with it, the blade just bends and breaks, apparently. But it's a pretty firm blade. I mean, it's not terrible, in my opinion. So anyway, I mean, it was just a lark and that sort of thing. But yes, I think the T-Rex skeleton came off of Amazon Japan. It was a real surprise find, because you build the thing. It's all those little bits and pieces. You build the thing, and that's quite fun. I found a missing vertebrae this morning. I've been unpacking slowly as you go along, and so there you are. Yes. Yeah, and the other head, the other skeleton, this one here, I got here in the UK. It was a play toy. It's got a little LED light in it. And the aliens figurine came from Japan. The skeletal figurine is from South Africa. I'm particularly proud of this thing. This is the Borg cube. Now, there was a board game, not a board game, a tabletop war game called Star Trek Attack Wing. And most of the miniatures are like that. They're miniatures, right? Except for the Borg cube, which is a proper size Borg cube. Now, they don't come illuminated because they're playing pieces. So I cut it open and ripped out, but there weren't any guts inside of it. And then I just threw LED strip lights into it and made it illuminate, which I think works quite nicely. So anyway, there we are. And then, of course, the rest are books, either my own or books from authors that I particularly admire, or role-playing games, of course. And then all my board games are up there. So, yeah, there we are. And there you go. So that's the tour of the studio, pretty much. Then, of course, the Lannister banister, the Lannister banner, because the Lannisters are just awesome. So yeah, all right. Oh, Adrian, thank you for lurking. Thank you for being around. Thank you for being awesome, and thank you for that donation. And certainly, yes, I will have a coffee, although it will be a decaf coffee. That was the wonderful thing that happened to me today. Was a fan of the show reached out to me and said, "Oh, I see you've moved to a new area of London. Let's meet for a coffee and let's have a chat." So we met for coffee this afternoon, and it was a lovely period. I don't even know how long we met for. I just know that the time just vaporized, and they introduced me to all kinds of things. So I see that there are some questions that are coming through, so that's brilliant. So let me jump onto some of those questions that came through. Now, if you are going to ask a question, please put the word question in front of it so that I can see it pop out in the chat. So Nicholas Morrow says, can you use Dungeon Fog for world and region maps? Dungeon Fog does have a region map set of props and things, but, and this is from their own founder, they're not strong. They were a test to see how far the Dungeon Fog current engine could go. What they are in development with, though, the same company, Dungeon Fog, is a piece of software called Deos. Now, Deos is going to be absolutely amazing, because that will be a region map, it will be a world map, and it will be a battle map, and it will be a city map editor. So at the moment, if you want to do regions, or if you want to do large scale maps, your only two options, as far as I can tell, in my opinion, are either Wonderdraft, which is okay, I like Wonderdraft as long as it's black and white, or Incarnate. Incarnate.com, Incarnate basically. And Incarnate is, I think, particularly beautiful. I used them long ago. I still use them when I'm creating world maps or region maps, because I make very, very pretty maps, but those are coloured. In terms of the mountains, have got browns and greens for forests and those kinds of things. Whereas Wonderdraft allows you to do black and white. Deos, which will only really release next year as a final product, is going to give you world map, region map, city map, battle map. So there you are. So if you're looking for region maps, Incarnate or Wonderdraft. There is also Campaign Cartographer for those of you that like graphics from the 90s. I did not like Campaign Cartographer's look and feel. But then again, I haven't looked at it for at least 3 or 4 years. Jack underscore says, how are you doing? I must admit, today I was feeling a little bit under pressure because I deleted video files for videos. I was also nervous as to see how people reacted to the new video that came out yesterday with the new set in the background and the new styling and that sort of thing. People seem to, well, they don't seem to have cared very much. They watch the videos as much as they normally do. But I put in a lot of effort to try and make this background as interesting as possible. It'll still take time. It will take time. But yeah, so I'm doing a lot better now. Thank you very much. Another question from Nicholas Morrow says, can you post the link to your Japanese-esque elves? The video that I did, I think that was... Yes, I have that video somewhere. I'm sure it's there. I think we'll have to go looking for it. I think, yeah, it was one of the campaign creator series. The last of that series was in there somewhere. We can go look for it, but I don't know what particular link you're looking for. YouTube link or something along those lines. Jeff Williams, thank you so much. Here's a scone for your coffee. Scone or scone? I have always been raised that it's a scone, even though theoretically it should be pronounced scone. But lever and lever are two very good examples of where pronunciation in the English language means nothing. So yeah, I say scone. I say you have tea with jam, scones with jam and cream, and that's how you go. I haven't had a good scone in a while, actually. Now that I'm in the country that invented them, I should probably have one or two. Anyway, let's see. So White Tiger 225 says, question, 2 players are sisters in game, I'm assuming, because one is a tiefling and one is an Asimir. Daddy is going to be resurrected in his mortal form to bring chaos to the world, but instead of just chaos, what does he want with the sisters that carry some of his blood? I have some ideas myself, but what would you suggest? Well, that's an interesting one. I would say if father is returning and he has the 2 sisters, and he's going to bring chaos to the world. If I was the father, and you want the father to be evil, if you want the father to be the big bad, well, as far as I'm concerned, what the father should do is he should engineer it that the one tiefling becomes the leader of the demonic forces, and that the other one becomes leader of the heroic forces. Now, I had something similar to this organically happen. I didn't plan for it, but in a game that I was running a long time ago, I had players who were basically getting to godhood. They were fighting their way there and that sort of thing. And they just naturally gravitated. One became the Empress of Hell, of fire and damnation and all evil. The other became this super powerful god who eventually ended up murdering everybody else so that he could become the one true god. It was never intended for the party to split along those lines, but that's how it did. And eventually it literally became a really, 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 really powerful game that I had to run on 2 separate sessions. One was for the good guys and one was for the bad guys. And that was a lot of fun, actually. That was a lot of fun. Another question from Nicholas Morrow. Do you have World Anvil articles for your custom elves? No, I don't think so. And even if I do, I think they were very, very brief entries. I don't think I do. Which is okay, so that one is a repeat, so that's absolutely awesome. Again, thank you to Jeff. Thank you for that. Tice the Betrayer says, the new book coming out is letting you completely renovate the races. What's your thought on separating races from stats? Well, it has been on the cards, in my opinion, for a long time. At the same time, one of my biggest worries is by taking the stats away from the race. Now, I haven't read this article about the book that's coming out that's going to, renovate races and stuff. But if you look at it, you say, okay, so you can play a dwarf And you go, okay, good, I get to play a dwarf. But the statistics that you get to play with your dwarf don't have anything to do with the actual race of dwarves. And you go, well, but that doesn't make sense. Dwarves are slightly shorter than humans. We know this for a fact. They've been like that that's how they are genetically. They're stockier, they're hardier, they spend their lives in different environments. Surely there should be some kind of difference. And I can understand where it's coming from in terms of trying to remove racial separation, if you like. That's one of the things. I mean, the other thing is that you want players who want to play a dwarf, but they want to have elven dexterity, because my dwarf is particularly dexterous. I have to say that even within the human race, and this is just from me traveling around the world, we as humans are diversified such that you could grow up in Japan. If you were born to Japanese parents, you're genetically born to Japanese parents, whether you're in Japan or whether you are raised in the US or whether you're raised in Africa, you will still have the genetic weakness for alcohol that most people have that come from Japan. It's part of their genetic makeup. Just like if you come from Scandinavia, you will have the genetic markers that allow you to metabolize milk, which means that you can drink a lot of milk without throwing up, which was a big trend on YouTube for a while, and I'm sure it's on TikTok somewhere. We have these different variations. If you come from Africa, genetically, if you are from Africa, your dark skin is there for a reason. It allows you to survive in Africa. So being able to say, okay, well, I'm completely Japanese and I have Japanese parents, but I don't have the Japanese stats. Why? Why are we erasing that? For what purpose? For what purpose? That's my question. That is my question. Anyway, so there you go. I hope that sort of answers roughly where you're going. I do to a large degree, though, sort of say, okay, right, what is genetic for the race and what is cultural for the race? So I have for a very long time, I have never bothered with alignment. I have never bothered with the drow or dark elves are evil. They're not. They operate in the same cultural way that they have always operated in. If that is considered evil by human standards, it's not by dark elf standards. So I have removed that, which is cultural programming. Again, let's go back to real world examples. The cultural programming that I received growing up as a human was very, very wrong from a government perspective on how we should treat one another, as opposed to the cultural upbringing that someone who was raised in Brazil received at the same time. So the alignments officially would have been very, very different for those two different cultural groups, if you like. So yeah, I think that kind of answers the point, I think. Adrian found banana milk. That's awesome. Yay for banana milk. That's fantastic. Now I want banana milk. Anyway. Okay. Right. I recently bought the Stronghold Builder Guide for 3.5. I read that it needs to be adapted for use in 5th edition. Supposedly the prices for 5th edition are different. How should I go about that? I kind of don't see a need to change anything. Well, the Stronghold Builder Guide for 3.5, I'm not familiar with that. I am familiar with the Stronghold Builder Guide for 2nd edition, where there were prices in gold pieces and the like. I can't actually think that there is a huge price difference between 3.5 and 5th edition. A longsword still costs a longsword's value. And to be perfectly honest with you, having worked with the financial system that sits within 5th edition, it's all just made up. I don't care what they say in terms of research. Those figures are literally just... That's what looks good on paper, or legacy from 3.5. So I wouldn't stress too much about it. If the cost of your castle is sitting somewhere in the region of 400 to 1 million gold pieces, you're in a good spot. Speaking of which, there has been some amazing progress made in the Excel spreadsheet for the ships in nautical campaigns. I will find that because I want to show that to you. Let me just open it up here. Gene has been working on this quite a lot. Where are we? Boom, here we go. And he's now incorporating a whole bunch of different things. Let me just download it, and I will open it, and I will share it with you. This was done. I think I have to go into this window. So when I go here, yeah. So this was done by Gene, and he is developing it, and it's absolutely amazing. So you build your ship, okay, using all of the values from the rule book. He's even errated some of them because there were inconsistencies that we didn't pick up with. He's then got the maintenance costs for the sailor wages and all that kind of stuff. And I think if you're going to be doing a stronghold, if you're going to be doing a ship, I never intended for the accountancy to get this much. We really wanted to keep it simple. What Gene has done is said, okay, we're going to keep it simple, but we are going to keep track of everything. So this is everything. I mean, it's absolutely mind-blowing what he has done here in terms of, okay, cool. So our ship is, let's say it's 15 foot wide, and oh wait, it's all locked. I have to unlock it, enable editing. There we go. Idiot. Right, so it's 15 foot wide, and it's got a length of 120 feet. And notice how the cost is just rocketing up. Okay. Cargo, let's give her the capacity to carry 75 tons. And crew capacity, see, it's telling us the minimum crew required at the moment is 39. So let's punch this up to 50. Let's make that 50, so that goes away. The maximum speed is 45. We can have 6 weapons. So that's fantastic. Okay, so hull HP. Let's make it 350 HP because we want to have a nice, good ship. And let's give it a damage threshold of 5 because we can. We're going to use sails. The maximum propulsion speed we want this to be 60, so that's fine. That's all calculated for us, which is brilliant. It's really cool. Number of crew needed is 39. We've got capacity for 50. So with 39 crew, they are human. If we change them to something else, that will go up. Let's add in 10 ship's guard. We now need a barracks. So we know that we need to add in a barracks somewhere, which I think is here. So we need to add in at least 1 barracks. And of course that adds to the bill. Let's say we're going to have 2 ballista and 1 mangonel. And we now need to increase the crew because we need more crew now. So we now need 60 crew because we have a minimum of 58. And of course, this is just punching everything up. So I'm not going to carry on. I mean, this is just showing you the absolute amazing stuff. Oh, dexterity of 8. No, that's crazy. I want to increase that. Make it a dexterity of 10. It's only going to cost us 20,000 gold pieces. I mean, it's insane. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. So we can now see that our little ship is going to cost us 75,000 gold pieces, 76,000 gold pieces, and monthly it's going to cost us 2,780 gold pieces, assuming that we fire all of the weapons all the time and that we're carrying minimum stuff. So he's then got to the point that you can add all of upgrades. So all of these upgrades that are in the book, you can now add them in. And Gene Armstrong has done an absolutely amazing job of building this in so that you can keep track of your ship. And there's a printable ship sheet for you where you can add in your description. And there's our ship in literally seconds. Absolute seconds. So I take my hat off to Gene. I really do. And maybe I'll get him on the show and we can talk about the process of what he did, because it blew my mind away. I just asked for someone to help make a basic sheet, and he went in and did this absolutely amazing job. So when it comes to strongholds, if you're sitting in the 80,000 plus mark, you're in a good space. Yeah, it was so good, says Adrienne, back to the banana milk story. Not overly powdered banana, but nice. That's what you want. You want idea of banana, really. Okay, Jack has got another question. My game later today, awesome, is set in The Expanse. Great TV series. Any tips for getting better at being descriptive? I've seen the show and read the novels, but I still have trouble making the game immersive. One of the suggestions that I give to everybody is before you start playing the game, maybe half an hour before, find a quiet space, close your eyes, and walk down the corridor of the ship that the players are going to be on. Look at the metal railings with their red handles so that you can identify them easily. Look at the interface panels that are a deck above you, but you go up those red stairs to get there. Look at the rather convoluted chairs, the back of the chair, which has got the life support for when the ship jumps to hyper accelerated speeds to high G. Look at the readout, the data readout of the characters. That's what I try and do. I try and do that. Sometimes I fail, and I know that when I do, I'm often out of the zone. So there you are. That's a basic suggestion. Get yourself in there. Get yourself in there. So have a look at that. Okay. Let's see. Another question. No, we've already done that one. Okay. I've rolled back. Matthew Elkins says, is the interactive nautical campaign region map still available? I can't seem to find it again on World Anvil. I may have deleted it by accident, but then I asked them to restore it, and they said they did. But they may have told me, I'm just opening it up. Usually takes a while to load up. Where the pins gone? Oh no, the pins are there. It's all there. It is all still there. You want the interactive map? I will put it in the chat for you. And bugger. All right. There you go. There's your interactive map. Let's see. There we go. Okay, so that was Grizzle's question, which has now been answered. No, it hasn't been answered yet. I haven't got that far. Sorry, I'm just busy making sure that I get the thingy for the thingy. You need the thingy. Here we go. Right. Good. Fine. Okay, so that was Matthew Elkin's question. Grizzle's question is, my character just had his intelligence restored after a few in-game weeks of having a score of 0. Also, we somehow managed to time travel because Feywild. I've had him be confused, but I'm not sure just how confused he should be. Well, I would say that the important thing is that however confused you have him, don't cause him to delay or slow the party's progression down. Have him be a little bit confused, but then have him pick it up very quickly. Intelligence of 0 technically means he's brain dead, so I'm not sure how that would work. But anyway, I mean, it is what it is. So yeah, I really just would not have his confusion override the game enjoyment. If he's supposed to remember somebody and he doesn't remember from that period, then that's as simple as that. All right. Serpent's Embrace 2 says, I accidentally seduced my wife with an NPC who is a member of the Cult of the Dragon. The cult is currently helping the PCs, but may not do so forever. Do you have any advice on how I can eventually introduce the cult's true goals without actually betraying my wife's PC? Well, yes, to be perfectly honest with you. I assume by your wife, you mean in real life, your gamer wife who games with you. You introduced her to this cult of the dragon in-game, and her PC is now part of that cult. I would have a member of that cult perhaps start to form a romantic attachment to the wife's PC and have them casually mention, well, of course, we're working to bring back the dragons and cause absolute chaos and evil. You don't seem like the sort who would stomach that sort of thing. I'll try and help you get out of the cult without them following you down and murdering them. So in other words, what you're doing is you're showing that the individuals within the cult are not necessarily evil, but that there is hope, sort of thing. I would go that route. I hope that sort of helps in one sense. Jeff Williams says, I really want to make a tank that absorbs damage and has a high AC, but doesn't do much damage. Seems silly, but I like the concept of a bulwark knight type of theme. Well, sure. I think that comes from your descriptions rather than your actual values, because one of the big challenges that we have when we're role-playing is combat. Now, if you're creating a character that effectively can never be hit, or when they are hit, just never takes damage, the only thing that's going to happen is your GM is going to have to throw monsters that can hit you and that can deal significant damage. If those monsters go against the rest of your party, who are not designed to be a specific type of warrior, they might very well just get obliterated quite easily. So I would just be careful of going to extremes. I would rather make that a description. Why not say that that's what your character aspires to be? And sure, they get hit every now and again, but, well, if it's a balanced game, they shouldn't go down. So that would be my suggestion. Okay. Next question. Ame Musashi says, can ships be mimics? Oh yes. I think we've all seen that image of that giant Moor thing trying to reach out and eat a ship or something. I thought that was absolutely brilliant. Robert Reaper said, did the Fabled Lands template that you used ever get released for public use? I think it did, but it was a long time ago. I would actually have to reach out to Mikhail and see if he would share it with me again, because I don't have those links anymore. Those were on my Japanese computer. Yeah. Nick Pascuzzi says, where can one acquire the spreadsheet? For the nautical campaigns, Gene's still working on it. He sends me these. I'm nearly done, but I want to add more. Answer these questions. And I'm like, I don't know the answer to those questions because no one's ever asked them before. That's brilliant. So then I try and think about answers. Usually he's figured it out before I answer it. But so as soon as he's happy with it, we will release it publicly. And it'll be on our website for you guys to download and use as you so choose. Muzi1409 says, a question, how do you feel about the new changes to how races are going to be handled in the new source book? Do you think this will hurt the individual race's uniqueness? I was actually talking about it earlier on in the show in terms of the races. I certainly do. I do think that it will. Now, not to repeat what I said earlier, but bottom line is a good friend of mine, Michael Kessevan, the Dead Aussie Gamer, he and I were trying to write a role-playing system. And we got to the races, and we spoke about, okay, well, these are race inherent traits. And he didn't like the idea. He said, well, why, if I'm playing an elf, do I have to get saddled with the fact that elves use long swords and longbows? I agree. That's a ridiculous idea. Not all elves are going to train in long swords and longbows, and if they do, that is a cultural choice, not a racial choice. So the culture of high elves are to use long swords and longbows. If a human was raised in the same culture, they would learn to use long swords and longbows just as well as the elves would. So we then debated backwards and forwards between the whole idea of genetic stuff that you can't change. If you are a four-armed alien and your species works with four arms, you can't create a four-armed alien and say, well, actually, I don't use the other two arms. Well, if they were injured or in an accident, that's fine, but that's a narrative choice. If it's, well, because I want to be able to be free to do whatever I want to do, well, then why bother having rules in the first place? I mean, let's just get rid of those. There is a big fear that ultimately you end up where you go, well, this is my character, and you go, oh, what is unique about your character? No, they're a grey pasty thing that has a little bit of everything so as not to be exclusionary of anything else. It's a very complex debate. It's a very, very complex debate. But yeah, culturally, that shouldn't be implicit. That shouldn't be without decision. racial genetic should be inherent to the race. Otherwise, why bother playing different races? I mean, really. Remember to put the word question in front of your question. That's right. If you are going to ask a question, please do that. And if I miss your question, please ask it again. Please ask it again. Right, Lance Pickett says, there seems to be confusion between the idea of races and the reality of species. Do you believe that some of the problems that some people find RPGs racist would be solved by explaining that we are talking differences by species and not races? The whole concept of race is the word, not our understanding of it. Unfortunately, it was misused very much, and it has been converted into a negative space. This happens all the time in the English language, or many languages for that matter. If you take the words, I'm just trying to think now. Take the word gay, for example. Up until the 1950s, it meant happy and exuberant. Fred Astaire made a film called The Gay Bachelor, which had nothing to do with his sexuality at all. He was just a happy bachelor. So that word then got politicized and converted and now it applies to a sexuality. Race has done the same thing. Instead of it being used appropriately to differentiate between different humanoid groups, it's now just become this war politicized background. And I think what we're seeing is an attempt by society in its whole to try and work out how to use these terms in a way that they are not exclusive, that they are inclusive. And so if you talk about the human race, singular, that's fine. But if you start saying that someone who's from Africa is of a different race to someone who is from Europe, then someone like me, for example, I say, okay, well, then I'm African. And you go, well, that's not the African race. And you say, well, but I was born in Africa. I'm from Africa. So what happened was that race just started to become color, effectively, which is awful. And we don't like that at all. So the idea of calling it different species, are elves a different species from humans? Sure, I guess. But if they're different species, then we have a problem that you can't have a half-elf. Because species, by definition, is that it can't intermingle with others. So it's an interesting one. I mean, it's really interesting from a whole bunch of different perspectives. Bottom line, though, is as long as wherever we end up, because we're exploring this space, we're trying to unpack this space and figure out what the right term is. And you know, I work with software companies and writers and authors and things trying to publish material for the role-playing space. And it's a long and hard debate in terms of, well, we need you to choose your skin color, but that has implications. What do we call it? Skin color? Is that worse than ethnicity? Is that worse than group? Is that worse than kind? All the words that we have for creating some kind of clue as to the skin color of a person, and there are implications that go with that, right? There are implications that go with that. Some fascinating implications, which I didn't even know, to be perfectly honest with you. Some of them are actually, you could talk about them in polite society, but most of the time you probably have to have an 18 symbol on the screen in order to be able to talk about them. So yeah, I am all for inclusivity. I am all against excluding people based specifically on the color of their skin. That means nothing as far as I am concerned. It is all about the individual from a human perspective. From a dwarf perspective, do I have to call a dwarf a different species to an elf? I don't care. I can do that. That's easy enough. Do I call it a different race? I still don't care. I can do that as well. So, but I do think we need to find a space where everything fits, and we need to be aware that people are sensitive to these subjects, very much so, and that as long as everyone's happy at the end of it, then it's a good thing. Okay. Albino Reaper says, how would one go about making wars or battles a formal affair with contracts or agreements to impose conditions for combat and victory? How would other nations go about enforcing rule breaks? Albino Reaper, I would look to what caused World War II to happen, to be perfectly honest with you. Because, or World War I, I should say. I think it was World War I. Was it 1 or 2? I forget now. Anyway, the idea of these contracts that nations sign, that if you go to war, we'll go to war, it's usually all just loaded weaponry to a large degree. So if you're going to try and set up this idea of a formal agreement, usually it's a case of, we won't attack you if you don't attack us. Oh, and you can't attack any of our allies. And we can't attack any of your allies. And if we do, then you can attack us. So usually it's a case of we're all pointing guns at each other, and then nobody pulls the trigger, because once you do, then everything starts to fall apart, which is the whole nuclear program as well. So yeah, I would do that. I would look to that. Look to the Geneva Convention. Of course, that's our big contract that says you're not allowed to do this to prisoners and those sort of things. Jack says, what's a fun name for a dead smuggler's spaceship? I would call it the Living Dream. For irony. Okay. Again, if you have questions, please put the word question in front. Xander the Green. There we go. I have not forgotten you, Xander the Green. I went to the post office the other day to try and figure out how to post your book to you. And they said that I had to put it into a box and then seal it inside of said box. So I have now procured a box. I have procured the bubble wrap that will go around your book. And now, believe it or not, I'm looking to find a silver pen so that I can write inside your book and then send it to you. I feel awful. I owe Xander this book now since, when was it? March. So since March. COVID did play a big part. I wasn't allowed to go to post offices for a large amount of time, but now I can. So I am now getting on to that. So your question is, my players are currently in Avernus, trying to escape to Mount Celestia to find the god of time to fix their cataclysmic failure. Any ideas on how to run the mountain of lawful good creatures? I would have it as a series of tests. To be perfectly honest with you, off the top of my head, I would say that the lawful good creatures on Mount Celestia are wary of anyone who approaches, obviously. And so they will put the characters through tests of moral character. So it could be the first one, that the party comes across an old woman who's struggling to carry a heavy load up the hill. And if they run past her, they failed the first test of not helping the old woman. Then I would have another test where they are offered a bribe to smuggle something higher up the mountain again. So I would do it as a series of lawful good tests, effectively to see if the party was worthy or not of getting to the top of the mountain. Serialist Boo says, what are some ways to help my players develop backstories and ease into role-playing? I also want them to develop deeper personalities for their characters. 2 of my players are brand new, and the other has low experience. I want them to spend more time interacting with each other, since their basic backstories state that they were friends before their adventuring began. And I want some material to use after we finish the module. Okay, well, that's brilliant. To begin with, I would go and watch the video that I did called 8 Questions to Ask Your PC. Those questions, I think, really help create backstory. Things like, who are their parents? What did their parents influence them? How did their parents influence them? What did their parents do? How did that influence them? So that starts to build a story. Now, if they were all friends beforehand, that's even better. Because then what you do is you get each one of them to write the beginning of an adventure that they went on. So the first one could write, one day we went down to the river. Then they pass that on or WhatsApp that particular paragraph to the next player, who then adds a little piece. When we got to the river, we discovered that there was an old troll skeleton, and we decided there was an old troll skeleton, full stop. Then the next one picks up. We decided to throw rocks at it until it moved. Then the next one picks up. We discovered there was a dog eating the insides of it, and we ran away disgusted. In other words, they're collectively creating the story. They're watching it grow. They're having that experience. So that I think will really, really help cement them do that. That was an old trick we used to do at Toastmasters. Excuse me, I'm just going to open up my bottle of drink here. 7-Up. Light 7-Up. They were on sale, so I picked up some. Yeah, all right, so that's what I would do. That is what I would do. Bum, bum, bum. Let's see. So, White Tiger, you propose species versus subspecies. It again raises problems. Who are the subspecies of the human race? Anyway, I don't want to go into this debate. Sorry, I'm being facetious here. It's a very big challenge. It's a very big challenge. Let's see, where are we? Can't we just say that humans and dwarves are branches of the same tree? You could. Tester Ranger says we have 3 groups: humans, demi-humans, and monsters. Demi-humans is certainly what they used to use in 2nd edition. Only problem being, and I did a video on this called Racism a long time ago, and it got a lot of people very hot under the collar. And yeah, so by creating humans, demi-humans, and monsters, you're still creating differentiation between demi, semi, sub. Those all have negative connotations. Robert Reaper says, would it be interesting just to change to kind? No, because then you get that awful sentence, well, you're kind. Again, like I said, the problem is that we have all of these negative associations because it's such a touchy issue. We still haven't solved it anywhere in the world. Everywhere that you go, there's always some kind of prejudice based on the color of your skin. Whether it's acknowledged or it's not acknowledged, it is still there. Whether it's in how we treat one another, it is still there. And I haven't yet. Individuals are enlightened, certainly. But on the whole, well, there you are. Yes, look at all of you World War I buffs. Matt the Modest, SW Ont Gamer, correct, the Untante Cordial. There we go. Cow Two Face, yep, World War I was pretty much it. Yeah, World War II was a lot more straightforward. It really was. Yes, World War research at the top of the list. Absolutely, you should. It was very, very interesting. Noob question says Warrior Poet 80. I love the Dark Sun setting. Would suggest it to a group of newcomers. I've never played in the Dark Sun setting. I know of it. I think it's quite an old setting, as a matter of fact. I think 2nd edition actually even had a version of the Dark Sun setting. Any setting you could play with people. If they're newcomers, it'll be the first one that they encounter. So it will set the bar for survival, because I believe it was quite a rough one from that perspective. We could use kith and kin, elf kin, or blood, orc blood. Yeah, absolutely. I think that might be a good way to go. Grokka Deadeye. I think that's a good way to go. Robert Reaper, Reba McIntyre, the Christmas guest, would be a good example of celestial test. I know Reba McIntyre as the country singer who wanted to break into movies, so she starred in Tremors 2, and I thought she was brilliant in Tremors 2. She was fantastic. So that was a great film. I preferred Tremors 2 to Tremors 1, to be honest with you. But that's because I like the species. You see, there we go. I like the species of the graboids and their little baby ones. So there you Lester Vinghale says, what might be some of your thoughts on multiple prime material worlds with different levels of technology interacting with each other? Bronze Age to steampunk level tech. The only thing that's important, Lester, is to understand how or why trade does not exist between them. If characters can move between them, why does it not exist? So when, for example, we look at Stargate, as wonderful a series as Stargate was, I guarantee you that when the opportunity arose to go, wait, we can travel to other worlds, and there are worlds out there that don't have electricity, computers, vacuum cleaners, strange little plastic things that you can clip onto the end of your mass-manufactured pencils. Right, Stargate. Yeah, you guys go and explore another planet. We're shipping through 100,000 tons of plastic beads to go and trade with all of these backward planets to make our fortune. Commerce is always driving. I mean, look at our space race. Look at our space race. We're going to space because people want to make a vast amount of money out of it. So whatever it is, if you can travel between those worlds, why is trade not happening? And if trade is happening, how is that impacting worlds? Some worlds might say we refuse to trade with people because we see that you're bringing in a bad influence. Other worlds, however, might just engage wholeheartedly in that, or worse yet, adopt it and make the rest of their population basically slaves to fuel their needs. So that would be something to look at. Right. Okay, so Grizzle says, my group has been charged with gathering 51 humanoid skeletons in a week, or else the city will be destroyed. Okay. Gathering 51 humanoid skeletons in a week, or the city will be destroyed. This is difficult for my good aligned paladin and is pushing one of our first-time players towards being a murder hobo. How can I keep the party together on this and hopefully prevent my friend from going down the murder hobo path? Well, firstly, do the skeletons have to be fresh? Can they just be skeletons? In which case, then I would say go to the mortuary, go to the morgue, go to the hospitals, go to the cemetery. If one of the players starts murdering people for these 51 humanoids, the only way you can reconcile that is it worth sacrificing 51 humanoids for an entire city's worth of people? Sacrifice 51 to save 10,000. Statistically, that isn't a choice. It's a straight up trade. 51 for 10,000 doesn't. There's no difference whatsoever. So I would look at it. I would look at it from that perspective. Try and get your paladin to find alternatives from the murder hobo option. Definitely do that way. And if push comes to shove, get your paladin to volunteer to be number 51. So if you get 50 bodies, let the paladin say, right, slay me. I will not let you slay an innocent. Take my body, because if you're willing to slay them, then you're willing to slay me. And put it on the wire like that. I would let your fellow players know that you are in this predicament and that your paladin is having an issue with this, and that you want to do something dramatic, and see where it goes. Another question from Xander the Green. One of my players was forced to sell their soul to a devil, thanks to the feeble mind spell dropping their int to 1. They want to find a way to free their soul without killing it. Thoughts? The lawyer in me, as well as the devil, I must say, I would make a case that the feeble mind spell was in effect. So essentially, the contract is null and void. Because, well, quite honestly, the contract is only signed between a willing participant and the devil. Clearly, with feeble mind in effect, they weren't the same person. I would argue that. I would also say that the only way to get out of that contract, if I was the devil, would be to provide the sorcerer who cast feeble mind in the first place. Get him to confess that he did, and then the contract is, of course, non-existent. But until then, it's your word that you were enfeebled, not without proof. So yeah, I would go that route. I would go that route. So yes, have a look. have a look and see what you think. Hello, Game Masters Vault. I hope you're having a fantastic afternoon. So there you are. I don't know, White Tiger 225. There were only 2 Tremors. Tremors 4 was quite fun. That was the Wild West one. It was awful. It was a real C-grade film, but I quite enjoyed it. I quite enjoyed it. Writing Machine 123 says, any advice for getting into Call of Cthulhu as a newbie? I have no idea where to start or where to begin to get into Call of Cthulhu. How should I start getting into it? And which rulebook should I get? I have a sudden interest for that mystery setting. Well, yeah. Look, I would say that Call of Cthulhu, you obviously need a rulebook. I know there's lots of versions out there. There are lots of versions out there that you can look at. I have the Call of Cthulhu 7, I think. Yes, you can see it over there. It's the big white named thing, Call of Cthulhu 7. Look at that, the camera's even focusing on it for you. So I have that one. It doesn't really matter. It's more about the story than anything else. And yeah, I would start off slow. The Call of Cthulhu, there's mystery to it, and I have done a whole bunch of videos on how to run mysteries, by the way, and how to run horror as well. So have a look at those if I were you. And then, yeah, just start running a mystery. Figure out something that's weird and figure out why it's weird and how it got to wherever it is that it got there and what are the ramifications. Don't fall into the trap, though, that a lot of people do fall into, which is where they say, Call of Cthulhu, oh, right, so by the end of it you have to have gone insane and have eaten your own hand. Call of Cthulhu has a very strong mechanic on how you get rid of the psychic damage of seeing these great ancient ones and the like. So, yeah, I would do that. I would also play Call of Cthulhu with a much smaller group. I wouldn't play it with 5 or 6 people. I'm sure there are people who do. But I could see Call of Cthulhu being run for 2 players being very edgy. I think that could work. I apologize. It's a 7-up. Okay, then we go Nicholas Morrow. Any advice creating a noble light fantasy setting? Noble light is the stuff that you would find, I would say, in things like your Saturday morning cartoons. So I'm trying to think now. Noble light could be something like the Gummy Bears, where there's an evil bad, but he never really succeeds and he fails. He-Man and the Master of the Universe is a noble light. All the while the characters are doing the right moral thing and only the moral ones triumph and that sort of thing. So yeah, I would have a look at those 2 for inspiration. All right. Yes, Writing Machine 123. SW Ont Gamer quite rightly pointed out that Seth Skorkowski, S-K-O-R, Skowski. Seth Skorkowski has a whole channel where he pretty much devoted himself to Cthulhu, Call of Cthulhu, and now he's doing Traveller, I believe, as well, which is really, really cool. I'm running out of time here. I've only got a few questions left. Okay, cool. So I will answer these questions and then we'll call it a night for today. Let's see. I am looking for questions. There we go. Terry K got the spelling correct. Dekrishka says, how can I show my fellow players my character backstory, which the character doesn't want to talk about, without twisting the character or creating an info dump? Well, I would personally look at your character history, look for a topic, a singular topic that you want to cover. Because in my long life, I have, when dealing with people and they're giving you their inner secrets, so they're reluctant to talk to you, what you find is sometimes you'll be sitting quietly and the next minute they'll just say, I had a cat once, its name was Pogo, and it got eaten by a dog. Okay, wow, that was random. But if you're a good friend, you'll go, How long did you have Pogo for? What color was Pogo? Who was the dog? You know, and then you explore just that one little facet. Don't worry about getting everything out. Enjoy giving out little pieces here and there, and don't do one in an adventure, because otherwise it becomes like, oh, now it's time for Marty's personal backstory. You don't want that either. So I would just let that out a little bit at a time. Okay. Next question. Albina Reaper says, what are 3 best practices you possess as a GM? What techniques do you think you excel at? That's a deep question. My goodness. Okay, so let's see. What are 3 best practices you possess as a GM? I very seldom say no flat out. I try and find or provide alternatives, or I will say yes. However, there is a consequence for doing that. So I think that's one. I am very focused on making sure that the story is about the characters and not about the plots that my villains and things are doing. So my plots will always be on standby, following along with the characters, not the other way around. And I would say that I am pretty good, I think, of allowing players to determine the outcomes of things. So if there is a ruling, if there's something that's weird, I will ask them for their opinions, their input, and then I will go with that. If they have input and it makes more sense than what I was going to do, I will go with that as well. So I think I'm a fairly interactive and cooperative GM when it comes from those perspectives. Yes, what I know I fail at is the rules, the laws. I don't know. It's like, I don't know, can you disengage and then take a dash action? Well, disengage moves you 5 feet, and then, yes, why not? Just move somewhere else. Game Master's Vault. Guy excels at handling split parties. Well, yes, I do handle split parties quite well. Improvising and keeping the game moving. Oh, well, there we go. That's kind of you, Game Master's Vault. None of the 3 that I listed, but I'll take that as a compliment. Handling split parties. I do enjoy split parties. It's so much fun. The tension that you can create is just amazing. Improvising. Well, yeah, I like to improvise or just not plan. And then keeping the game moving, well, yes, that has happened as a result of running shows where you have a limited amount of time. Matthew Elkin says, I need help encouraging my players to be heroes. They constantly second-guess their actions, wait too long to rest after every encounter, and break character to discuss tactics, suggestions. I would ask them, is that what they enjoy? Do they like that kind of stuff? And then I would also look and say, well, are you enforcing that? Are you making sure that every encounter depletes them of all of their skills, spells, and abilities, in which case having a rest after each encounter seems to make sense? Are you allowing them to have a rest after each encounter rather than attacking them on a regular basis? So they attack, they defeat the goblins, and then they take an hour-long rest. Well, half an hour into that rest, you get attacked by the hunting party coming to find where the last hunting party went. So I would look at re-educating them, as it were, as well as re-educating yourself in terms of how you're handling the timing and that sort of thing. So yes, bear that in mind. But first and foremost, ask them if that's what they enjoy, because that's maybe how they enjoy playing the game. In which case, then it doesn't matter what you do. That's what they're going to do. People saying that they miss the creative writing. It was fun. Audience interaction like that was exciting. Kind of like a fun pop quiz. Well, we can certainly go back to that. Like I said, I like to include my players' suggestions. If you guys want us to go back to doing creative writing, I will happily go back to doing creative writing. I really enjoyed doing the creative writing. I think it's a lot of fun. So why not? Let's do that. Absolutely. And then Squat Raccoon, last question for the evening, I think, says, how do you maintain pacing in combat? It can be tricky, and as your characters go up in level, combat pacing slows down even more. So what I generally do, and don't let my players know this, generally I won't let a combat last more than 4 or 5 rounds. It doesn't matter how many hit points the creatures have got. It doesn't matter if they're being hit or they're not being hit. But If the combat has lasted more than 5 rounds, is it really that exciting? I mean, it's what? Bleh, bleh, bleh. I don't know. I like it to be fast. I like it to be quick. I like it to be furious. Of course, like I say, I come from a background now where in the last 3 years, I have run more games online than I have run games around the table. And that forces you to be very quick. And you don't have time to sit there just rolling dice ad infinitum. So there we go. Yes, absolutely. Right. Okay. There is one more question. I'm going to answer this question and then that's it. No more questions. So Chabard the Hunter says, I'm playing an antagonist for my friend's game. Oh, interesting. The character is a vampire devotion paladin who's been able to cling to his humanity due to his religious obsession. Any role-playing advice? I would explore the conflict that the paladin is going through, but don't make him angsty. Don't make him, oh, I hate my suffering, for I do not wish to do this, but I shall do this. I would have him do it and then find a way to repent. So I will eat the blood of the innocent, and then I will spend a year where I am desperately trying to rebuild a village at no cost and anonymously so that nobody knows that it's me. So I would have it go that route. I would look at that side of things. So that way, when you encounter the players, it's like, well, this person is desperately trying to save a village or save someone or something from a futile cause. Why are they so desperate for it? Oh, because they eat people and this is how they do good on their days off. Interesting. So I off the top of my head, that's what I would do. So before we go, I will share with you guys, in case you didn't see it, and this is simply because I think they are really interesting. They're completely backed, by the way, completely backed. That is the link to the Kickstarter for the Endless Dice. And I've set up a little camera here. That's the wrong camera. I've set up a little camera here. That's the right camera of the Endless Dice. Now, this is 2 sets of Endless Dice here that are on the Kickstarter. These very intricate dice. I think the numbers are quite clear to read on the silver set anyway. I don't have a difficulty seeing those numbers personally. So I think they're quite fun. They're very heavy. They're a little bit bigger than normal dice, regular dice. Check out the Kickstarter. I really would. The price point. Let me just double check this. I'm gonna share the screen with you. I'm just gonna share the screen because when I saw it, I was like, no, there's a mistake. So look, they're already on what, £44,000. My God, am I envious of their £5,000 goals. So that's just brilliant. And this is still on day 1. I mean, they literally launched last night. So, but they've got this whole story, which was really cool. I tried to read that out. But look at this. So Sam, by the way, is an amazing person. He is really, really a lot of fun. We chat all the time on email. No, don't select that reward. I don't need to. No, they're all gone. Okay, so that was the early bird thing. Right, so you back it or you unlock these dice, and I think they've unlocked everything. This was the early bird feature, which I think is gone now. But there you can see the different dice sizes. But look, so they've unlocked all of the different colors of dice. The gold ones I think are cool. Like I said, these Endless Darkness ones, they are a little bit dark. But where these I thought were really, really, really pretty. The sort of oil-based color. The painted ones. Where's the bloody price tag? I was so impressed by, I think that's just divine. It's like, what do you do with old D20s? Turn them into a little tableau. Look at that. That's lovely. Right, so look at that. A 7 set is £45, which is about $55, which I must admit is not a heavy price tag for very solid metal dice. They come in these nice dice boxes. Mine didn't because I got prototypes. Yeah. Anyway, if you're looking for some dice, this is the way to go, in my opinion. I think this is a really solid set to go with. So there you are. Steve Malero says, here's $5. Thank you, Steve. I really appreciate that. Wow, we were winding down the stream, but I will answer your question nonetheless. So I must now kill Which camera? I have to go back to that camera. No, wrong camera. Wrong camera! That's the camera. So there you are. Any tips for a DM who dealing with a player who only wants to roll dice? Role play as a cat. Who only wants to role play as a cat. A DM who's dealing with a player who only wants to role play as a cat. Well, I would say that you can't. I would say that they could roleplay as a tabaxi, introduce them to the idea of the cat folk race, but I would simply say that the rules don't allow for a player to play a cat. You can't be the familiar. And even if they were, or if they insisted, I'd say, okay, well, you use the tabaxi statistics, and then you're the familiar of one of the party members. But to be perfectly honest with you, if they only want to play a cat, I strongly suspect that they don't actually want to role play. They just want to hang out with you and spend time with you. And a cat is the most innocuous thing that they can think of, where they can have fun telling a little bit of a side story, but they're not involved. They don't have to learn any rules. And there you go. So have a thought about that one. Wow, the pound has come down a lot next to the dollar. I remember when it was $2 to the pound. Yeah. Well, $100 is 78 pounds. So you guys can do the maths. I certainly can't. Anyway, those are gorgeous dice. They really are gorgeous. They are difficult to read from a distance. I will give you that, from a distance. But anyway. Okay, folks, it has been a lot of fun. I have gone way over time because, like I said, it's been a lot of fun. Blaze King, I appreciate the donation. Thank you very much. Really do appreciate that. Yes, I will see you all. I'm not sure, actually. I know that next week, Wednesday, was supposed to be the one-on-one game that I run with Brian, where he plays Raj the Tabaxi, as a matter of fact. Only I've got new players joining, and we need to do a session 0, and the only time I can actually get in is next week, Wednesday. So I am going to say now, there is no show next week, Wednesday, as much as I would like there to be, because I will be doing a session 0 with my new players. So we will wait for that. So no show next week, Wednesday, but next week, Tuesday, provided that everything gets approved, he said, pausing whilst he thought this through, next week, Tuesday, starts my new review. Now, if you remember, in July, we did the review of Torg Eternity. Next week, the first week of September, my review starts on The Dark Eye, which is a role-playing game that comes from Germany. Now, I've already started to sort of get into the rules and that sort of thing. And yeah, The Dark Eye, the Schwarze Auge, is a very interesting role-playing system. It's D20 based, but quite different. Is it good different? Is it bad different? I don't know, but that review starts from next week, Tuesday, I'm hoping. So there is that. And then, of course, we'll see you again the following Saturday for more of this. And we will be doing creative writing, as voted by you. Until then, however, I want to wish you and yours the very happiest of gaming. Goodbye.